All right, welcome to Functional Nutrition for Mental Health. We are going to talk about how foods, supplements, and lifestyle changes can help you reverse symptoms of anxiety, depression, ADHD, and more. Now, my position is not that you will never need the medication, okay? Some people just do. But my position is that your medication should never be your first line of defense. It should be the last one. You should really try and identify the root causes of your symptoms and try and fix them with natural solutions. And only and if they don't work, then you may consider medication because otherwise, we have a crisis in our society. Everybody seems to be needing an antidepressant, while what they need is a better diet, better digestion, less toxicity in their lives. I should start with a disclaimer that the information provided in this webinar is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any medical or mental health condition, and it should not be considered medical advice and should never replace consultation with a qualified healthcare professional. It does not establish a practitioner-client relationship, and if you think you require urgent attention for your depressive symptoms or panic attacks or any other condition, please consult your doctor. Okay, let's begin. So, I am Olga Grass. I am a certified nutritional practitioner, a registered nutritional therapist, and I have been practicing functional nutrition for over 10 years. I have been working on various issues with my clients, but mental health has always been near and dear to me. It was the beginning of my practice. I became a nutritionist to help with ADHD diagnosis in one of my children. And since then, I have founded Happy Nutrition, which is my clinical practice where we develop personalized nutritional solutions based on your health goals, your health conditions, your genetics, and using functional testing. And for the past 2 years, I have been running Health Academy offline, and this year we are switching online, and that's why there's so many technical issues. But we are delivering evidence-based, accessible, practical, and transformative health information to help you become healthy and happy. All right. If you've never heard of what functional nutrition is, although I think everybody knows by now, it's evidence-based, personalized approach to nutrition that first and foremost looks at the root causes of health issues and not just symptoms. In other words, when you go to a doctor and you have a headache or you have high blood pressure, they just give you medication without trying to understand why it is that you are facing those issues. Now, we always try to evaluate your diet, your lifestyle, your genetics to see why this might be happening, but also focus on an integrative approach, solution approach to the issue. We use foods, nutrients, supplements, lifestyle factors to balance your microbiome, your hormones, to bring your whole physiology into balance. And what functional nutritionists do, they never look at the person as the sum of their organs. In other words, John Smith does not equal his heart, his brain, and his gut. No, we look at John as a person, and if he is dealing with certain issues, we're trying to see the connection between different issues in the body to find the right solution. Now, another point that we always make in functional nutrition is that food is information. Okay, it's not just calories, it's not just for energy. Food is it's the messages, it's directions to your software, so to speak, to your body, how to run, how to behave. So, in food can turn genes on and off, which is pretty cool. All right, well, now let's start. So, what do these have in common? Low stomach, estrogen dominance, mold exposure, and B12 deficiency. Well, all of these can cause depression and anxiety or the symptoms of depression and anxiety. So, this is why when somebody comes with those symptoms, it's important to see what else is going, what kind of environment they live in, how's their hormonal balance, how are they digesting food, are they deficient in anything. And this is what we're going to do today. Now, as just like we say, um, diabetes is not a metformin deficiency and depression is not a Prozac deficiency, right? Because medication never addresses the root cause, it just manages symptoms. So depression is a symptom, but we always need to find why it's happening. Here is a tree that shows the root cause connection, right? If somebody is dealing with depression, anxiety, brain fog, or PTSD, or even some psychiatric disorders, insomnia, these are different potential causes that might contribute to those symptoms. Nutrient deficiencies being number one, and we're going to talk mostly about that today. Neurotransmitter imbalances related to nutritional deficiencies, blood sugar dysregulation, inflammation, oxidative stress in the body, brain dysfunction, axis dysfunction, hormonal imbalances, disruption of the circadian rhythms, toxicity, mitochondrial dysfunction, methylation, and all kinds of modern, so to speak, toxins that we're exposed to. So it's important to address all of these to get rid of the symptoms we're experiencing. We are going to focus on nutritional deficiencies. Why? Because this is something we can fix quickly at home. And I always say you're not depressed, you're starving. In other words, your brain, your nervous system needs certain nutrients, macronutrients, micronutrients. And if you're not supplying those, your brain will not function optimally. The first a person to talk about food being medicine was Hippocrates. He actually mentioned a lot of other cool stuff. He would say, okay, don't talk to me about the disease the person has, but talk to me about the person who has the disease. Because, even though the symptoms of depression and anxiety, the root cause might be totally different for two different people. He also said that everything begins in the gut. And this is why, again, it's bringing us back to nutrition and to digestion that need to be addressed before anything else can be fixed. Now, I'm not sure if you've heard of orthomolecular nutrition. The word orthomolecular means ortho, the right the right building block to your body at this moment, at the right time. The pioneers of orthomolecular nutrition were Abraham Hoffer. He was a psychiatrist, among other things, and he actually used B3 niacin high doses and vitamin C to treat schizophrenia. He worked on different population segments and treated alcoholism, depression, and anxiety. The other person who perhaps is even more famous is Linus Pauling. He has won Nobel Prize twice. He was a physicist, chemist, but most importantly, he coined the term orthomolecular biology, and he proposed that mental abnormalities might be successfully treated by correcting imbalances or deficiencies among naturally occurring biochemical constituents of the brain, such as vitamins, minerals, and so forth. And he favored those over psychoactive drugs. Now, in the past decades, nutritional psychiatry has been on the rise. There are a lot of studies, and I'm not going to read all of them, but they're just some examples. For example, in 2021, the impact of nutrients on mental health and well-being has concluded that overall data support a positive role for the nutrients mentioned above for the prevention of normal brain function and mental well-being. So it talked about specific micro and micronutrients such as magnesium, folic acid, vitamin E, and so forth. Another study on nutritional psychiatry has concluded that accumulating data suggests that this may be indeed be the case, that the diet and nutrition are not only critical for human physiology and body composition, but also have significant effects on mood and mental well-being. Okay, and there's definitely an association between a poor diet and the worsening of mood disorders, including anxiety and depression, and vice versa. Another study on the role of diet and nutrition, mental health, and well-being concluded that even interventions with relatively modest effect sizes may be plausibly and significantly curtail the disease burden of mental and neurological disease by food and nutrient-based approaches. I think this is huge. I think most doctors need to learn, and even psychiatrists, psychologists, they really, when they see clients, they really should evaluate or refer them to nutritionists to help them fix their diet. Okay, there's another study on diet for the prevention of depression. Here's a diet for anxiety that mentions specific nutrients. We're going to see them again, such as omega-3, zinc, magnesium, selenium, probiotics, and other phytochemicals. So I really enjoyed reading the summary of this study. That study has kind of compiled different conclusions by, it's like a meta-analysis. So it talked about obviously omega-3s, and it talked about total sugar consumption, but actually some studies were very breathtaking, I would say. For example, a nationwide study in Korea found an association between dietary riboflavin and suicidal ideation. In other words, those who are not getting enough certain B vitamins would be more likely to commit suicide. So, modified diet or riboflavin intake may be a crucial strategy for reducing suicide risk. I think this is huge. I think this should be talked about, promoted, because unfortunately, suicide is on the rise in our society. So, nutrition, it should be viewed as the foundation of mental health. That would lead you to better mood, better energy, better cognition, better memory, better learning abilities, and so forth. Now, when we talk about nutrients for the brain, we have to understand they're not all created equal. Some of them provide energy for the brain. Some of them are building blocks for the brain. Now, energy, when we talk about energy, it's usually either glucose or ketones. Building blocks, that would be lipid, fatty acids, and amino acids. Now, micronutrients are very important because they participate in biochemical transformations as enzymes and in hormonal processes as well. And some bioactive molecules, such as phytochemicals and antioxidants, they help fight oxidative stress, and they switch genes on and off. So there's these signs of epigenetics that's pretty amazing, and basically it gives you all the hope that you're not a slave or a victim of your genetics. You can always um, have better destiny. Now, so you are what you eat. Obviously, if you're not supplying your body with the right building blocks, the right energy, it's not going to function properly. And the same goes for the brain. I always have this analogy. Everybody knows about Three Little Pigs. The quality of their uh, structure would heavily depend on the material they're using, and the same goes for our body. If you're wanting to build a beautiful and strong castle like this with white and red brick, but you're only eating uh, carbs, you're not going to be able to create the optimal masterpiece at the end. So just be mindful of how you're building your body, your brain, your nervous system. So, what is it that our brain needs? Let's look at what it's composed of. Well, water. Look at that. By total weight, it's mostly water. Now, 60% of fat by dry weight is fat. It's phospholipids, cholesterol, myelin. Now, see, I think in the past few decades, that scare that we had as a society of cholesterol really contributed to the rise of dementia, Alzheimer's disease. Unfortunately, that because people started staying away from cholesterol. Well, it's a good, actually. Non-oxidative cholesterol is actually a very important and protective nutrient for our body and our brain. 10% is protein because we need our neurotransmitter and precursors to our neurotransmitters, enzyme transporters. We also need minerals for enzymatic functions and the energy. And don't forget about blood vessels. You can have the best nutrition. It's like when you're building something and you have good bricks to deliver, but there are no roads to bring them to the construction site, then you can't use the bricks. So microcirculation to the brain, to the nervous system is very important. And we should really be paying attention to our anti-inflammatory diet to support the health of blood vessels. Now we talked about water. So this is just some examples. So water in the brain supports cellular function, nutrient transport, and electrical conductivity. Even mild dehydration can impair brain function. There's even a book that's called "You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty." So make sure you drink, at least 30 milliliters per kilogram of body weight to ensure you're not dehydrated. Now, lipids, fats, just like we said, we talked about the phospholipids, cholesterol, omega-3. Omega-3 is huge, and we're going to talk more about very soon. And protein intake should be adequate. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't get enough protein. Some do, some actually, especially in those in the athletic industry, they overdo it. But a lot of people don't get enough protein in favor of quick carbs, unfortunately. And minerals and trace elements such as sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, zinc, iron, copper, selenium, they're all important for our mental health. Now, this diagram, it's an example of how we make certain neurotransmitters. Now, you probably have heard of serotonin. It's our happiness hormone or happiness neurotransmitter that is made from a dietary protein, dietary amino acid called tryptophan, which, if you have enough folate in the body, would be converted into something called 5-HTP. And then if you have enough vitamin B6 in the diet, it will be converted hopefully into serotonin, which, if you have enough zinc and magnesium and folate and B12, would eventually become melatonin. So, in other words, if you are deficient in any of the micronutrients or macronutrients, such as protein, you're probably not going to be happy and you're not going to be sleeping well. This is how important our diet is for mental health. This is a whole list of different brain nutrients that your brain needs, pretty much. You can see um, here on a nutrient on the left, the role, and where you can find it. So I'm not going to read all of them, but you can see, in order to have the possibility of being mentally healthy, you really have to A, have a very balanced diet, and B, have very good digestion to actually be able to absorb all those good nutrients. Now, we talked about the nutrients, but we have to mention anti-nutrients. Some foods not only not provide our body with good stuff, like with energy building blocks, with protection, but actually take away, um, you know, our resources, so to speak. For example, sugar and refined carbs, they drain our body of B vitamins, especially B1, B6, and magnesium. Too much caffeine and alcohol will deplete the body of magnesium, zinc, and B vitamins and will interfere with neurotransmitter balance as a result. Chronic stress, every time we get stressed, we lose tons of B vitamins, tons of vitamin C, tons of magnesium. So it's all needed for adrenal function. And if you're not getting it through the diet or through supplementation, chronic stress will lead to some chronic health issues. And medications. A lot of medications cause nutrient depletions. Unfortunately, people don't realize that. Pharmacists don't, tell people to take supplements along with their medication because, well, we don't really have a lot of preventative medicine in our society. But in any case, you can find a whole charts online that will tell you which nutrient is depleted by which kind of medication, which kind of type of medication. You can find those online if you would like. Just Google nutrient drug depletion, and it's amazing. I think people need to be very mindful if they're taking certain medication of their possible side effects, but also the nutrient depletion that they might be causing. Now, let's get more specific. According to the research, when we're talking about ADD or ADHD, these are the nutrients that people with those diagnoses are typically deficient in: omega-3 fatty acids, zinc, iron, ferritin, magnesium, vitamin D, B vitamins, amino acids, choline. Now, you're going to see that they kind of repeat. So these are very foundational nutrients that are very important for mental health. You're going to see them in other conditions as well. This is just some research links over here. Anxiety potential deficiencies. Here we go again. Magnesium, B vitamins, vitamin D, omega-3, zinc, iron, selenium, and antioxidants, right? Again, more links. And depression potential deficiencies. Again, omega-3. B vitamins, vitamin D, magnesium, zinc, iron, and its storage form ferritin, tryptophan, which is an amino acid, tyrosine, another amino acid, which is a precursor to dopamine and norepinephrine, glutamine with GABA, and selenium, antioxidants, and thyroid. Iodine is very important for your thyroid health. So if you're not getting enough, you might be feeling depressed. Now, let's talk about solutions. Solutions usually include healthy diet, good quality supplements, lifestyle changes and exercise, and obviously removal of anything that's detrimental to your mental health. Now, just as a preventative measure, if you're not battling any specific condition, we've already seen that B vitamins and omega-3 and magnesium, they kind of get repeated in most mental health issues. So you can always take this B complex, magnesium glycinate, omega-3, EPA and DHA, actually both, on a regular basis, right? They can be taken long term, and actually should be, especially if you are stressed and you are constantly trying to sort of not to fall apart in the modern world. You can always get some of it through foods such as sardines, liver, leafy greens. But again, if you're under more demand from your day-to-day life, food will not be enough. You need to supplement. Now, especially when it comes to fish, fish is a great food for mental health. I would even argue it's one of the best. Why? It has adequate protein, it has good omega 3, it has iodine. So basically, if we could only eat fish like every day, 3 times a day, we would be a very happy society. Now, the problem is fish is very contaminated. If fish is wild and it's big, it's full of heavy metals. If fish is farmed, it's full of hormones and antibiotics and who knows what. So unfortunately, and fish is very expensive. So unfortunately, we can't really afford to be eating that much fish to get adequate omega-3. This is why I always recommend that people supplement. And you have to keep in mind that there are different sources of omega-3. Animal sources are always better than vegetable sources like just algae or chia seeds. If you're a vegetarian, yeah, you have to kind of go with that, but it's best to take an animal source. And if you don't like fish, you can always get very good omega-3 from seal oil. It actually has a very unique composition with certain fatty acids that are found only in seal oil, such as DPA, which is very protective, and it's in human breast milk, so it's helping the immune system, among other things. But my preference is always krill oil. First of all, it's better absorbed. It's in a phospholipid form. Secondly, it's cleaner source because krill is at the bottom of the food chain. And finally, it has some antioxidants such as astaxanthin, which gives shrimp its red color, and it's a very powerful, oxidative stress fighter we all need. So krill oil is the way to go, I think. Lecithin. One third of your brain is made from lecithin. It's component of the brain cell membranes and nerve cells. It can help regenerate sluggish brain cells, improves memory, speech, and motor functions. It can help with neuron growth, and it's the main substance in phosphatidylcholine, which provides choline to make acetylcholine, which is the main neurotransmitter that helps transmit information between nerve cells and help the brain overall function properly. As a matter of fact, patients with dementia or Alzheimer's disease, they are lacking that nutrient, and supplementation with that does help with cognitive issues. So it's with memory. So lecithin is something you can take inexpensively, either through food. You can just sprinkle your salad with lecithin granules if you don't mind the taste, or which I do. So I prefer supplementing with lecithin. It can be found in sunflower or soy. Soy is usually purified, so it's okay to take. And eggs, don't forget old-fashioned eggs, good source of lecithin. Vitamin D. Most of our society, especially in North America, are deficient in vitamin D, and especially in the winter when the levels in our body, in our system, go even lower, we get those seasonal affective disorders, right, in the winter. So we want to supplement accordingly. It's good to take to do your blood test at least once a year, better 2 times a year, to make sure you get adequate vitamin D supplementation, because 1 or 2 thousand might just not be enough. All right, we talked about neurotransmitter. We talked about tryptophan conversion to serotonin. Now, another amino acid, tyrosine, would convert to dopamine, and magnesium and theanine are needed to make GABA. So these are all basically neurotransmitters that help us live in a balanced state. As a matter of fact, here's a study that GABA deficits are implicated in panic and anxiety disorders. Now, when you supplement with GABA, you need to get good quality, the one that actually does cross the blood-brain barrier. Sublingual liposomal is always the best. So not all GABAs are created equal. Now, solutions for good neurotransmitters in your body would be adequate protein in the diet, digestive support. You cannot digest protein, you cannot extract those powerful amino acids if you don't have enough hydrochloric acid, or you have pancreatic enzymatic insufficiency, and as well if you don't have cofactors such as magnesium. So make sure you supplement when needed. Here's a study that shows that following 90 days of GABA supplementation, look at this, there's been ameliorations in depression scores, in depression, anxiety, stress, So it has been really great. So GABA does work. You just need to find the right supplement, the right brand, the right bioavailable supplement. Now let's again talk about serotonin. Did we mention that 90% of it is made in the gut? So if your gut is not healthy, if you have dysbiosis, the lack of good bacteria and overgrowth of bad bacteria, you might not be producing enough of that neurotransmitter that will then travel to the brain, right? So the gut brain axis has been increasingly more studied for so many different issues, but specifically for mental health. Um, there's been even some attempts to cure autism by fecal transplant. Yeah, because apparently gut microbes have a very powerful impact on the system. So we really need to work on making it diverse and very, very, um, composed of friendly bacteria as opposed to pathogens. Right. So here's a study that talks about implication of dysbiosis and anxiety and depression. And yeah, I like that. Your poop tells the story of your mood. That's very true. People who are constantly nervous, depressed, stressed, they tend to have IBS, and most likely IBSD with diarrhea, but sometimes mixed diarrhea, constipation. So because your gut does react to how you feel and vice versa. So you really need to be supporting your digestion by improving your hydrochloric acid production and pancreatic function. Support the liver and gallbladder. I can tell you, if you can keep your liver happy, you will be happy, and you cannot be happy if your liver isn't happy. So that that's that. Heal the leaky gut with probiotics, L-glutamine, zinc, L-carnosine, and make sure you get enough fermented foods, fiber in the diet. And we're going to talk about some functional testing a bit later. Now, a lot of companies now, based on research and the new research, they come up with probiotics that will help you, and this is to target your mood issues, right? Because certain strains of bacteria are more associated with a more balanced nervous system. Blood sugar imbalances. Now, I used to work with children with ADHD, and I'll tell you one thing: a lot of those children didn't actually, I don't think they had an ADHD. What they had is improper diet and huge blood sugar fluctuation. So, in other words, when they eat tons of sugar, they have this jump in the blood sugar, and then they have a crash, so they can't focus, they can sit still. So a lot of that leads to an ADHD diagnosis, which all they need is proper diet with proper macronutrients. And yeah, so what you do is to have the right glycemic control, right, to avoid depression, anxiety, and ADHD. I would say you make sure you have protein with each meal, especially in during breakfast. You have to have breakfast, and protein always should go first into your mouth to make sure that you kind of reduce that glycemic load of your meal, so your blood sugar doesn't jump right away. So never eat carbs by itself. Never eat a cookie by itself, or even a piece of fruit. I know there's some Ayurvedic medicine that suggests that, but that's not for everyone, right? If you already have imbalances, you really need to forget about what we call naked carbs. You need to eat something around them, protein and fiber. And you can always support your system with chromium and berberine. They're great for blood sugar balancing. Now, inflammation and oxidative stress. Well, what is inflammation and oxidation? It's fire. It's literally, if you are inflamed, if your gut is inflamed, if your system is inflamed, your brain can be inflamed. Neuroinflammation is happening. Your brain is on fire. Well, how can you be calm, zen, focused? No, there's no way. So to reduce inflammation, that usually requires a whole body approach. It really requires evaluation of your diet, of your lifestyle, to reduce those inflammatory markers. But anti-inflammatory diet is key. What does it mean? First of all, get rid of all the junk food, all the rancid seed oils, all the fast food, all the going out to the restaurant where they use tons of those omega-6s like canola oil, corn oil, and all of that. And add some anti-inflammatory supplements such as curcumin, glutathione, N-acetylcysteine, boswellia, omega-3, same. And foods such as turmeric, wild berries, olive oil. Mediterranean diet seems to be having the reputation of the best anti-inflammatory diet out there. Hormonal imbalances, again, that needs to be addressed specifically for a particular person: male, female, stress levels, thyroid issues. But in general, adaptogens help balance stress hormones such as cortisol, like ashwagandha, rhodiola, Siberian ginseng. You really need, you can be taking those unless you have some autoimmune issues, but you usually can be taking them preventatively to avoid burnout if you know you're going to have an exam or you're going to have some stressful event, like, a job interview, something like that. But obviously, you need to balance your sex hormones as well, and make sure that your thyroid is in its optimal top shape, because thyroid, if it's not working properly, your whole metabolism will be slowed down and it's very hard to fix anything in the body. Okay, so this is just some study that shows that rhodiola rosea was very effective to help with different disrupted physiologies and dysfunctions, including um, non-specific stress damage. Right, interesting. All right, toxicity, metals, heavy metals, mold, chemicals in your skincare, in the air you breathe, in the foods you eat, parasites. Parasites are huge. Most people have them actually. They can really disrupt your neurotransmitter production. They can really hack your system. And we all know that a lot of mental health issues get worse around, say, full moon, because parasites get more active around that time. So detoxing is key for it's like your mental health insurance, right? Here's a study that links, there are actually tons of studies that link heavy metal toxicity to ADHD and depression, especially in kids, because kids' bodies are smaller and they have more toxicity per the same exposure, and their symptoms are usually more pronounced. So solutions, always test. I always advise my clients to get their hair tested for heavy metals and minerals, to see if there's any kind of toxicity in the body. But any kind of detox, glutathione support, binders, sauna, clean water, um, living in a clean environment if possible, would really be helpful. This is an example of a report for hair mineral analysis that looks at different heavy metals and minerals in the body to help adjust protocols. Mitochondrial dysfunction. Okay, so if you have a brain fog, your battery is probably like what, 10%. Mitochondria is your energy producers in the body, and not energy in the sense of how much you can move, but energy required for you to pretty much exist, to detox, to stay alive. So there's some studies that show that people with bipolar and ADHD might not have their mitochondria working properly. So we always want to support our powerhouses, our mitochondria, with nutrients like CoQ10, PQQ, some B vitamins, carnitine, and healthy fats, right? Because some of our mitochondria love fats. So ghee, butter, avocados, all good fats. So fats and mental health, they really go hand in hand. Methylation and epigenetics. Methylation is how you pretty much turn on, turn off your genes, how you detox your toxins from the body. So every cell needs to be methylating properly. Now, some people just genetically are not good at methylating, or some over methylate. So it's important to test if you have symptoms. But if you're not sure, usually try methylated forms of specifically B vitamins such as B12, folate, and B6 might help with symptoms, but also getting universal donor SAMI and choline and reducing toxins and stress can help with methylation. Now, I always say, if you can afford and do functional testing, if you have symptoms, right? If you want to avoid medication, you don't want to go on antidepressant, or you want help with your anxiety or with your cognitive function, and you don't want to take medication. Well, first of all, you might want to do some functional testing to figure out what's happening. There are tests, and some of them are not cheap, and that's why there are ways around it. But usually, if you can test your neurotransmitters, usually it's done either mostly through the urine testing. You can test micronutrients and cofactors. Usually, again, just looking at plasma is not very informative. So in other words, blood test is not the best way to test your micronutrients. There are other ways, but it's a good thing to do if you can. Essential fatty acids, sometimes just adjusting the diet will, you can avoid the test if you don't want to do it, but you can test those markers if you want to evaluate your essential fatty acid status. Gut health and microbiome. I think everybody should do it at some point. There are a lot of fairly inexpensive gut health tests that will tell you exactly who lives, what kind of bacteria, what kind of microorganisms live in your colon. And dysbiosis, which means lack of good bacteria or overgrowth of bad bacteria, or not a sufficient variety of bacteria in your gut. It's a problem for not only digestion but also for your mood, right? Your short chain fatty acid producers, if there's any pathogenic bacteria, how's your gut permeability, so the test for zonulin. It's all important to know if you have symptoms to figure out what's happening. Inflammation, oxidative stress, you can do some blood test work here. Now CRP, C-reactive protein, ESR, ferritin, and other oxidative stress markers. Blood sugar, metabolic health, yeah, fasting glucose, insulin is just the beginning. You want to obviously test HbA1c, but fix your diet to avoid those jumps in blood sugar. Hormonal function, they're really good saliva-based or urine-based tests for that. They're quite expensive, but sometimes that's what needs to be done. Toxic load testing against, just like I said, heavy metals or mycotoxins, right? Another area that sometimes the last resort for a lot of people who can't explain their symptoms otherwise, right? And methylation and epigenetics. So some genetic testing and homocysteine levels, which will show you how well you're methylating. So when people come to me, if we can do some of this testing, we will. If not, there are other ways, symptomatology-based ways to evaluate potential imbalances. This is just a couple of quick studies. I had a client, she was a female in her 30s, a new mom. She came to me with panic attacks that started 6 months prior to that. Until then, she had been generally healthy. And then we figured out that something happened around the time when she took antibiotics around 6 months prior. And when she went to her doctor, she was actually diagnosed with celiac. Yep, gluten allergy, basically. She can't have gluten. Every time she had gluten, she had panic attacks. So this is how connected our gut and our anti-nutrients are with our mental health. Another client I had was a male in his 40s, and he had a very stressful lifestyle. Actually, he started losing hair. Now, we did a hair test analysis and found that he was very high in mercury because he was eating tons of fish. So, this just shows that sometimes you need to do some functional testing to determine what is happening. Now, I have developed, based on my professional and personal experience, functional nutrition for mental health signature program and a course that's starting on October 2nd. Now, it will run on Thursdays around this time at 7 p.m. It will be a live session where we will go through the material. It will be a video lesson where you can ask questions. You will have access to self assessments and self evaluation to evaluate all of the things we talked about, your macro and micronutrient deficiencies, your gut health, your inflammatory levels, your blood sugar, whether your diet is conducive to that or not, your hormonal imbalances, your toxic overloads, methylation, so forth. So we're going to go through all possible mm, root causes of mental health symptoms so you can pinpoint what it is that might be causing those imbalances in your life. And hopefully by the end of this program, you will be able to create a personalized mental health nutrition plan, which will make you a healthier person overall, right? Because we will work on your gut, on your hormones, on reducing your toxicity, on improving your sleep. So it's a good program regardless of what health conditions you might be trying to fix or prevent. I have a good promotion for you guys because we're just starting. I'm giving you away this course for 50% off. So if you would like to purchase it, you go to this link and you type save 50. That will give you half off of the price. Now it's going to be 12 weeks. Weekly, all the lessons will be recorded. So if you miss a lesson, it's not a problem. You will have access to the recording. And there will also be office hours once every couple of weeks where you can come and ask your questions about those lessons. Okay. But regardless, this is a good promotion. And there's another course that I developed, which is a natural supplement advisor course. If you look at all the modules, we're going through different types of supplements on the market, and you will learn how to use them safely and effectively, how to combine them, how to take them best. And I would give this course away for free if you take advantage of this promotion. Right, you get the main mental health course at half off, and then you get this course for free. But if you don't want a mental health course, but you still would like to become a supplement connoisseur, you would like to be an expert, this course is actually at 75% off as well, because we're just launching online. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I know it was very packed with information, and each of these slides could be a presentation on its own. But I find that mental health is not just important, it's this topic is life saving, it's life transforming. And I think everybody has to be aware of what can be causing them to be unhappy with their life. And that's why I created Happy Nutrition, to keep you healthy and happy.